They say you can tell how a person is judged within 10 seconds of walking into a room. For Daniel Carter, the truth would be tested the moment he stepped into Gate 52A of Kennedy International Airport. The air smelled faintly of coffee and jet fuel, the low murmur of travelers filling the space. Daniel, dressed in a tailored navy suit and polished brown shoes, moved toward the first-class boarding line. His posture was calm, his confidence quiet. In his hand was a black leather briefcase and a first-class ticket with his name clearly printed on it. But before he could take another step, a voice cut through the noise. "Sir, economy boarding is that way," said the flight attendant, her name tag reading Lena. She stood like a guard in front of the first-class gate, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. Daniel stopped, still holding his ticket. "I believe this is the line for first class," he said softly, showing his boarding pass. Lena took it, frowning as if she'd discovered something impossible. "This must be a mistake," she muttered. "Let me verify this before you proceed." Her voice carried farther than she intended. Several nearby passengers turned their heads. Daniel remained composed, his tone calm. "Take all the time you need," she called for her supervisor through her headset. Within moments, a woman in a blazer, Manager Kelly, approached with a tight smile and curious eyes. "What's the issue, Lena?" Kelly asked. "This gentleman claims to have a first-class ticket." "But it doesn't look right to me," Lena said, folding her arms. Kelly looked Daniel up and down before speaking, loud enough for others to hear. "Sir, may I see your ID and credit card used for the purchase?" Daniel obliged, handing them over without hesitation. Kelly examined each item as if searching for flaws in gold. She tilted the ticket under the fluorescent light, turned it over twice, and then sighed dramatically. "This is unusual," she said. "We'll need to run a deeper verification." A murmur ran through the growing crowd. Someone whispered, "He probably used a stolen card." Another took out their phone, recording. Daniel stood motionless, the embodiment of restraint. Inside he could feel the sting of humiliation, but outside he remained unshaken. Then came a voice that shifted the energy completely. "Y'all seeing this?" said Maya Lopez, a college student filming a live video on her phone. "This man is being stopped for flying first class just because of how he looks." Her audience began to grow, dozens, then hundreds. Comments poured in faster than she could read. At the boarding gate, the loudspeaker announced, "Flight 726 to Atlanta. Now boarding first-class passengers. Departure in 45 minutes. Still, Daniel stood there, waiting, surrounded by suspicion. Kelly ran the card through her portable scanner. It approved instantly. She frowned. Then she ran it again. Another approval. Her face tightened in disappointment. "Sir," she said finally, "we'll still need to verify this purchase with the airline. You'll have to wait right here." More passengers gathered, phones raised. A businessman in a Yankees cap muttered, "Probably bought it online with fake credentials." Maya's live stream viewer count jumped to 4,000. "Look at this," she said into her phone. "This is 2025, and they're acting like it's 1955. Daniel checked his silver watch, not impatiently but precisely. His phone buzzed with messages from his assistant. He silenced it without reading. "Take your time," he said again, his voice steady, his eyes sharp. Kelly radioed airport security. "We have a passenger with a suspicious first-class ticket at Gate 52A, requesting verification." Two officers arrived within minutes, Officer Ramirez and Officer Cho. They stood close, firm but polite. "Sir, we need to confirm your identity and the purchase record," Ramirez said. Daniel nodded and handed over his ID and card again. Ramirez studied them, finding nothing out of order. Cho's gaze remained fixed on Daniel's briefcase. "Sir," Cho said, "I'll need to inspect your bag." "Of course," Daniel replied. He opened it calmly. Inside were documents neatly stacked, financial reports, company papers, and an iPad resting on top. Ramirez flipped through the files, his brow furrowing. The numbers and logos meant little to him, but they looked official. Meanwhile, the terminal buzzed louder. More travelers gathered, sensing drama. A retired teacher shook her head. "This is shameful," she whispered to no one in particular. Maya's live stream hit 12,000 viewers. Comments scrolled like wildfire. "Call the news. He's too calm and he must be somebody important. They're gonna regret this." Kelly looked pleased with the attention. as if each minute of delay was proof of her authority. Daniel, still composed, received a call. He answered briefly, "Yes, I'm at the gate." "Proceed as discussed," he said quietly, then hung up. His voice carried no anger, only certainty. 12 minutes later, the story would become something the airport and the internet would never forget. Captain Lewis stepped out from the jet bridge, his gold-trimmed uniform shining under the bright terminal lights. His expression carried the weight of impatience. He scanned the crowd, instantly spotting Daniel surrounded by security. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice cutting through the air. "We've got a full flight waiting, and I don't have time for delays." Kelly turned toward him eagerly, like a student reporting to her teacher. "Captain, this passenger's ticket doesn't appear legitimate. We're verifying with corporate." Captain Lewis glanced at Daniel, dismissive, as if one look told him all he needed to know. "Sir, if you can't follow proper boarding procedures, perhaps you should try another airline." A sharp silence rippled through the crowd. The words echoed into every phone camera filming. Maya's voice rose from behind her screen. "Did you all hear that? The pilot just told him to try another airline." Her live stream exploded. Viewers flooded the chat. "Unbelievable. That captain's finished. We're watching history right now." Daniel said nothing. He only glanced at his watch again. 12 minutes to departure," he murmured quietly. Captain Lewis crossed his arms, waiting for a response. "Well, sir, do you plan to cooperate, or shall I have you escorted out?" Officer Ramirez shifted uncomfortably. "Captain, his documents are legitimate. Everything matches," Kelly frowned. "Still doesn't make sense. Why would someone like him fly first class on this route?" Maya zoomed in, capturing Daniel's calm face. "Because he earned it," she said into her phone. "And you can't stand that." By now, over 30,000 people were watching the stream. Some at home, some in airports across the country. Hashtags began spreading. "For Flight 726, we're flying while black, can't let him board." Daniel's second phone vibrated again. He unlocked it briefly, typing a few quick commands into an app no one recognized. The screen flickered with airline data, numbers, and system dashboards too complex for the onlookers to read. Officer Cho leaned closer. "Sir, what's that you're doing?" "Just a bit of business," Daniel replied. His voice was low but steady as a heartbeat. The captain scoffed. "You think your business takes priority over airline procedures?" Daniel didn't look up. "Sometimes it does." Kelly rolled her eyes, muttering, "He's trying to intimidate us." But the security officers weren't so sure. Ramirez exchanged a glance with Cho, uneasy. The man's calm wasn't arrogance, it was control. Minutes passed. Passengers grew restless. Murmurs spread through the gate area. Some demanded explanations. Others muttered about delays. The loudspeaker cracked again. "Attention, passengers for Flight 726 to Atlanta. Boarding is temporarily delayed due to a security verification process. We appreciate your patience." Maya's live stream hit 60,000 viewers. Comments poured in from everywhere. "This is outrageous. He's handling it like a king. That captain's career is over." Captain Lewis shook his head. "This is a waste of time. We've got a storm window in Atlanta closing soon. Either clear him or remove him." Chief of Airport Security, Mr. Wallace, arrived, an older man with years of experience and a strict demeanor. "What's the issue?" he demanded. Kelly launched into a breathless summary, embellishing details as she spoke. Wallace listened, then turned to Daniel. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come with us until this situation is cleared." Daniel looked up slowly. "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet," Wallace replied. "But we need to resolve this before you board." Maya's voice trembled with anger. "He's being treated like a criminal for boarding his flight." The number of viewers crossed 120,000. News outlets began watching the feed. Screenshots of the captain's words spread across social media. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He answered briefly, eyes calm. "Yes, I'm aware. Give it another 10 minutes. The captain's patience broke." "You've caused enough of a scene, sir. This flight will depart without you." Daniel turned to him and said evenly, "That won't be happening." He took out his second phone again, his thumb hovering over the same airline operations app. A red icon blinked at the top of the screen. "What is that supposed to be?" Kelly asked, trying to sound brave. Daniel finally looked up, his voice low but clear enough for everyone to hear. "You said I should try another airline, Captain. The problem is, this one happens to be mine." For a second, no one moved. No one spoke. Then he pressed the button. Across the terminal, departure boards began to flicker. Delayed. Ground hold. Pending authorization. Every Meridian Air flight on the schedule changed status within seconds. Phones rang. Radios buzzed. Confusion swept through the terminal. Captain Lewis's expression turned from irritation to disbelief. "What did you just do?" Daniel held out his phone so everyone could see. The screen displayed a message. "System-wide ground hold, executive override confirmed." Chief Wallace stared at the words. "That's impossible. Only corporate HQ can issue an executive override." Daniel met his eyes. "Exactly. The silence that followed was absolute." Then whispers began. Someone gasped. Maya's phone camera shook as her voice cracked. He's the CEO?" The chat exploded. "What?" "This man owns the airline. They just profiled their own boss." Kelly's face drained of color. Lena looked like she wanted to vanish. Captain Lewis stumbled for words. Daniel slipped a sleek business card from his pocket and handed it to Wallace. Daniel Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Air. Every officer, every staff member, every passenger nearby fell silent. Maya whispered into her phone, her hands trembling. "You're all seeing this live. The man they humiliated is the CEO. The CEO of the airline." Her viewer count surged past 300,000. The story had gone viral. Captain Lewis's voice shook as he tried to recover. "So, Mr. Carter, there's been a misunderstanding." "I assure you," Daniel interrupted quietly. "You assured me of many things in the last 15 minutes, Captain. None of them true." Kelly's lips quivered. "Mr. Carter, we didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't care to ask," Daniel said calmly. "You saw a black man in a suit and made your own conclusion. That was your first mistake, and your last." Maya's camera caught every second. The world watched as silence settled over the gate. Then Daniel spoke again, his voice strong but not angry. "In my company, we don't teach respect. We expect it." He glanced at his phone once more. "Now, let's discuss consequences." The officers exchanged looks. The captain swallowed hard. The crowd held its breath. And as Daniel turned back toward the terminal monitors, the story of Flight 726 was no longer about one man being denied a seat. It was about power, justice, and a reckoning that would echo far beyond the walls of an airport. Every screen in the terminal glowed red with the words, "Ground hold initiated." The quiet hum of travel turned into a rising wave of panic. Passengers stared up at the boards, whispering and pointing, unsure if they had just witnessed an accident or an act of power. Daniel remained still, his presence commanding the space more than any raised voice could. The security officers didn't move. The captain didn't breathe. Kelly clutched her radio but said nothing, frozen between fear and disbelief. Chief Wallace's voice cracked through the tension. "Mr. Carter, with all due respect, what exactly is happening here?" Daniel turned toward him slowly. "Every Meridian Air flight across the country has been grounded," he said calmly. "And until this is resolved, not a single plane will move." Maya's phone trembled in her hand. "You all heard that? The CEO just shut down his entire airline because of what they did to him." The number of live viewers surged past 500,000. Comments flooded the screen. "This is history. He's teaching them the lesson of their lives. Power handled with grace." Captain Lewis found his voice again. "Sir, this isn't necessary. We were following safety protocol." Daniel met his eyes. "Safety protocol doesn't include humiliation. You decided who belonged based on a glance, Captain. You said you could spot trouble in 30 years of flying." The captain's lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel held his phone higher. "You're right about one thing," he said. "You did spot trouble. It just wasn't where you thought." The nearby passengers fell into a stunned silence. Some began to clap softly, unable to contain their emotion. Kelly stammered, "Mr. Carter, we truly didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you did," Daniel interrupted. His tone stayed calm, but it cut like a blade through the air. "Every tone, every gesture, every assumption. You made your decision before I ever spoke a word." He looked around the crowd. "You all witnessed it. No one stepped in. No one questioned why a man needed to prove he belonged in a seat he paid for." Maya whispered to her phone, "He's turning this into something bigger. This isn't revenge. This is a lesson." Daniel reached into his briefcase and took out a silver company tablet. With a few taps, he projected the screen onto the nearby monitor. Lines of data appeared. Passenger logs, employee files, financial reports, all tied to Meridian Air. "Let's make this transparent," Daniel said. Captain Lewis, 27 years of service, spotless safety record, $180,000 annual salary. Yet today, you decided your experience gave you the right to judge a customer before understanding who they were. The captain's face drained of color. "Sir, please," Daniel continued. Manager Kelly, 8 years at this terminal. High efficiency rating. Low empathy score from employee feedback. Repeated notes about poor communication with minority passengers. You were promoted last year for speed, not for fairness. Kelly's knees seemed to weaken. Her radio slipped from her hand and hit the floor. Daniel's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. The quiet, precise delivery of truth was heavier than shouting ever could be. "Lena," he said, turning toward the flight attendant. She looked near tears. "You blocked me at the gate. You called security before even greeting me. Why?" I thought I was following procedure," she said weakly. Daniel shook his head. "Procedure doesn't teach fear. People do." Maya's audience was climbing toward 1 million. Comment after comment flooded in. "He's dismantling racism in real time. This is leadership. This needs to be taught in schools." Chief Wallace cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Carter, this has become a national broadcast. We've got media calling already." Daniel gave a faint nod. "Good. Let them watch what accountability looks like." He zoomed in on another screen, this one displaying live social metrics. Right now, over 1 million people are watching this incident unfold. That's 1 million lessons on the cost of bias. Captain Lewis wiped sweat from his brow. "Sir, if there's anything I can do to make this right," "And there is," Daniel said. "You can accept the consequences. Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty. HR will finalize your termination before this plane takes off." The captain's shoulders slumped, his years of pride collapsing under the weight of one decision. Daniel turned to Kelly. "You'll be suspended pending review. You will complete bias retraining before ever managing another gate. Your career isn't over, but your ignorance stops here." Kelly nodded silently, tears welling in her eyes. Daniel looked at the officers. "Officer Ramirez, you followed protocol without prejudice. Thank you. Officer Cho, you handled this professionally. You'll both be commended for restraint." Maya whispered into her phone. "He's not just firing people, he's fixing the system in real time." Daniel took a breath, his calm presence returning like still water after a storm. "This wasn't about a seat," he said. "This was about seeing the truth in plain sight. About how assumptions can strip people of dignity before a word is spoken." He tapped his phone once more, lifting the ground hold. Screens across the terminal flickered again, this time back to normal. Flights resumed, engines roared to life, and the airport began to breathe again. But Gate 52A was forever changed. Daniel turned toward the crowd. "You've all just been part of something bigger than a flight delay. This moment will remind us that leadership is not measured by power, but by restraint. Real strength is calm under humiliation." Maya lowered her phone slowly. Her voice was almost reverent. "He's changing everything." Daniel gave one last glance at the staff around him. "Today you learned the cost of assumption. Tomorrow, you'll learn the power of awareness." Then he picked up his briefcase and walked toward the jet bridge. Every step deliberate, unhurried, certain. The cameras followed him until he disappeared into the plane. But the story was only beginning to take flight. When Daniel's flight landed in Atlanta that evening, the world already knew his name. News alerts flashed across every major network. Airline CEO profiled by his own staff. Executive grounds flights after racial bias incident. Commentators debated it. Social feeds roared and hashtags filled timelines faster than headlines could catch up. By the time Daniel arrived at Meridian's headquarters, the boardroom lights were still burning. Executives, lawyers, and communications directors sat waiting with pale faces and restless hands. The silence was thick until Daniel stepped through the glass doors. "Let's talk about what happened today," he said calmly, setting his briefcase on the polished table. Every pair of eyes turned to him. He didn't need to raise his voice. "We've just lived through a moment that exposed something deep within our culture. What I experienced wasn't an isolated incident. It was a reflection of what our customers have been feeling for years but couldn't prove. A young public relations manager, broke the silence. Sir, social media analytics show over 6 million views on the live stream in 4 hours. Our brand sentiment has collapsed by 70%. Daniel nodded. Good. Let's use that collapse as the foundation for something better. This company will not hide behind statements or excuses. We'll rebuild with truth. He turned to the legal counsel. Prepare an immediate investigation into the incident. Suspend all staff involved until proper training is completed, and begin designing an anti-discrimination policy that will set the industry standard. Across the table, Chief Operations Officer Graham cleared his throat. That's admirable, sir, but we're talking millions in new expenses, and we've already lost $340 million in market value today. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Do you know what costs more than that, Graham? His tone was steady, his eyes unwavering. Integrity lost in public view. We can rebuild value, but once people stop trusting us, the brand dies. The room fell quiet. No one argued. Daniel continued. Tomorrow we'll meet with airport executives. They'll be part of this solution too. No one is walking away untouched. As he spoke, screens on the wall showed live coverage of the story. Commentators replayed the moment he revealed his identity. In clip after clip, the audience could see his composure, the calm voice against the chaos. The narrative had already shifted. What began as humiliation was turning into leadership. By dawn, Daniel's name trended under new hashtags: Corn Quiet Power, Leadership in Action, Change Takes Flight. At noon the next day, the executive conference room at LaGuardia overflowed. Airport management, airline representatives, legal teams, and public officials gathered for an emergency session. The air was thick with unease. The same gate visible through the glass windows was where the world had watched the story unfold less than 24 hours earlier. Daniel entered last, composed as always, wearing the same navy suit. He set down his papers and looked out at the group. Let's begin by facing the truth. Yesterday was not an embarrassment. It was a revelation. Projecting data from his tablet, he continued. This incident has been viewed over 12 million times in 24 hours. We've received 2,000 direct complaints citing discrimination at airports nationwide. This is no longer a PR problem. It's a systemic one. Airport Director Janet Fields shifted nervously. Mr. Carter, I assure you this behavior doesn't represent our values. Daniel met her gaze. Values are measured by actions, not words. He turned the screen again, showing slides titled The Meridian Initiative. This is our path forward. We're implementing a nationwide anti-bias training program for all staff, from gate attendants to pilots. We'll install body cameras for all security interactions and launch an anonymous passenger reporting app. A buzz of whispers moved through the room. The financial officer frowned. That's going to cost millions annually. Daniel didn't hesitate. Then it will be the best money we've ever spent. Meridian will fund half. The rest can come from the airport authority's budget, or from the lawsuits you'll face if you don't. No one spoke after that. He continued. We'll also partner with civil rights organizations to oversee compliance. Every complaint will be reviewed by a third-party team. Transparency will be public and non-negotiable. For the first time, the airport officials saw the depth of his plan. It wasn't punishment. It was reform. Janet finally nodded. You have our full cooperation. Daniel turned off the projection. Good. Let's make this the example for the entire industry. As the meeting adjourned, reporters outside were already waiting. They shouted questions the moment Daniel stepped into the hallway. Mr. Carter, why didn't you press charges? Do you plan to fire everyone involved? Was this about revenge? He stopped and looked directly at the cameras. This was about respect. About the unseen weight of judgment people carry every day. We can't fix ignorance with anger, but we can destroy it with education. That line ran on every major network by nightfall. It was replayed millions of times. People quoted it in classrooms, boardrooms, and news segments. Within 48 hours, Meridian announced a partnership with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund to train all airport personnel under the new program. Public response turned from outrage to admiration. Investors began to see stability returning. The company's stock started to climb again, but Daniel wasn't celebrating. He wasn't finished. Back in his office, he watched the live feed of Gate 52A. Staff were back at work, some new, some retrained, all under watchful eyes. He could see Kelly at her post again, her body language softer, her tone careful. The once chaotic gate now moved with quiet order. Daniel leaned back, hands clasped, thinking of the cost of change. Humiliation, yes.
Pain, yes.
But the price was worth it if it bought understanding. His assistant entered softly. Sir, CNN wants a follow-up interview. They want to call this the Carter effect. Daniel gave a faint smile. Tell them to wait. Change isn't finished yet. He looked at his reflection in the office glass, the city lights shimmering behind him. We're not fixing an airline, he said quietly to himself. We're fixing how people see each other. And somewhere out there, millions were watching, waiting to see what came next. 6 weeks later, everything about the airport felt different. The terminal that once buzzed with tension now carried a quiet kind of pride. Travelers noticed it before they even reached their gates. Staff greeting them with eye contact. Officers smiling instead of frowning, and signs that read, "Respect flies here." Maya stood in front of Gate 52A again, phone in hand, broadcasting live to nearly 1 million followers. Y'all remember this spot? She said with a grin. This is where everything changed, and I'm here to show you what that change looks like now. Behind her, the gate had been redesigned. Bright banners displayed the Meridian promise, fairness, respect, and accountability. A small plaque near the boarding door read, "Dedicated to progress, inspired by truth." A familiar face appeared beside her. Kelly, the same manager who had once questioned Daniel's right to board. She looked different now. Her posture was humble, her voice softer. "I've completed the new training program," she told Maya. "It changed how I see everything. Not just passengers, but people in general." Maya smiled. "And how's that been going?" Kelly took a breath. "Hard, but necessary. I can't change what I did, but I can make sure no one repeats it." The comments under Maya's live stream flooded in. This is real growth. Redemption done right. Proud of her for owning it. Security Chief Wallace joined them, wearing a small body camera on his vest. "Every officer now records interactions for transparency," he explained. "We also have monthly community reviews. People like Maya help us hold ourselves accountable." Maya turned her camera toward the bustling terminal. "This isn't just talk anymore," she said. "It's proof that change isn't impossible. You just need the right people leading it." Later that afternoon, Daniel appeared on the concourse floor. There was no entourage, no grand announcement, just him walking quietly among the travelers. But the ripple effect followed him wherever he went. Employees nodded respectfully. Passengers recognized him and whispered with admiration, not gossip. He stopped when he saw Maya still streaming. "Still telling stories?" he asked. "Always," she said, smiling. "And still learning from you." Daniel chuckled softly. "Good, because stories are what change the world. Facts inform people, but stories move them." Maya lowered her phone a little. "You think people really changed from what happened?" Daniel looked around, the gate, the staff, the faces passing by. "Not all at once," he said. "Change is like flight. It takes lift, balance, and direction. We've just taken off." She grinned, turning her camera back toward him. "You heard the man. Change just took off." As her stream continued, the comment feed scrolled faster than ever. "This gives me hope. Airports everywhere should follow this model." That man turned humiliation into history. In the months that followed, the impact reached far beyond one airline. Delta launched its Inclusive Wings program. American introduced empathy and action training. International carriers requested Meridian's model for implementation in London, Dubai, and Tokyo. Airports began measuring not just on-time departures, but on-time decency. Universities taught the Meridian case study and leadership programs worldwide. Harvard called it a modern example of ethical transformation. CEOs cited Daniel's quote, "We can't fix ignorance with anger, but we can destroy it with education," as the new foundation of corporate ethics. Maya's platform exploded. Her audience grew to nearly 2 million across channels. She began working full-time as a social impact producer for Meridian, using her gift for storytelling to highlight the voices of passengers who had once gone unheard. Every week she visited a new airport, sharing stories of kindness, equality, and progress. One morning, while she was preparing a new video, her phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. "Boardroom meeting in 20 minutes. Bring your camera." When she arrived, Daniel was waiting with his team of executives. "We're launching something new," he said. "A permanent division for social responsibility. You'll lead it," Maya blinked, stunned. "Me?" "You've been documenting truth," he said simply. "Now you'll help create it," her eyes filled with tears. "You trusted me when I was just a student with a phone." Daniel smiled. "Because you had what everyone else forgot. Courage." He extended his hand. "Welcome aboard, Director Lopez." By that evening, her promotion had gone viral. The girl who once live-streamed injustice was now shaping global policy. And in every corner of the world, people whispered the same thing. One act of dignity changed everything. A year later, Daniel stood once again at Gate 52A. Cameras flashed, but his tone was quiet. "It's been 12 months since the day we learned what it means to see each other clearly. Since then, we've logged 0 discrimination complaints across all Meridian operations. Not because people stopped being flawed, but because they started being aware." He paused, glancing at the new sign above the gate. "Respect flies here. The world is finally learning to look again," he said. "Not at color, not at class, but at character." Maya, standing beside him, whispered to her audience, "A year ago I filmed a man being humiliated. Today I'm filming a movement that changed the world." The comments rolled endlessly. "This story still gives me chills." That's real leadership. Quiet strength speaks loudest. Daniel looked into the camera one last time. "Leadership isn't about control," he said. "It's about how you respond when people try to take yours away. You can always choose respect." The crowd in the terminal erupted in quiet applause. Travelers pausing between destinations to witness something more important than any flight. As the applause faded, Daniel turned to board his plane. Maya kept filming until the door closed behind him. Then she faced her audience with a smile that carried both gratitude and certainty. "Remember this story," she said softly, "because somewhere someone is being judged right now, and how we respond to that will decide what kind of world we live in next." The stream ended there, but the story never really did. It kept living, in airports, in boardrooms, in classrooms, and in the quiet moments when people looked twice before making a judgment. Because one man had shown the world that respect, when demanded calmly and lived fully, could ground everything else and then help it rise again. The following winter morning, the city woke under a pale sunrise that painted the airport glass gold. The terminals were full again. Families clutching coffee cups, children in fuzzy jackets, business travelers tapping on phones. Life had returned to motion, but beneath the surface, something had changed forever. At Meridian's global headquarters, a new wing gleamed with glass walls etched with words that had become legend. "We can't fix ignorance with anger, but we can destroy it with education." Employees passed through the lobby quietly, their badges reading Meridian Social Impact Division. It was the house Daniel built, an idea born in humiliation, now turned into global purpose. Inside the main auditorium, hundreds of employees gathered for the first annual Human Dignity Summit. The energy was electric, the crowd waiting for the man who had started it all. Cameras from every major network were set up at the back. The world was watching again, but this time for celebration, not scandal. Daniel stepped onto the stage, dressed simply in a dark suit. No introduction was needed. The applause was instant, rising like thunder before settling into silence. He waited a few seconds before speaking. "1 year ago," he began, "this company faced its most painful truth. We didn't fail because of one mistake. We failed because we stopped seeing people." He paused, scanning the faces before him. "But that failure became our turning point. It forced us to listen, to change, to lead." A massive screen behind him lit up, showing statistics that spoke louder than any speech. Complaints down 91%. Employee satisfaction at record highs. Customer trust at historic levels. Meridian's name ranked #1 worldwide for ethical business leadership. "Numbers are good," Daniel said, "but they're not the story. The real story is that a few minutes of humiliation were turned into years of progress. Because people chose awareness over pride." He turned slightly, gesturing toward the audience. "Maya, come join me." From the front row, Maya stood and climbed the short steps to the stage, wearing the same warmth that once came through her camera lens. The crowd cheered as she approached. Daniel smiled. "You once held up your phone to expose a wrong. Now you hold up a light to show what's right. You turned witness into wisdom, and for that, the world owes you gratitude." Applause filled the hall again. Maya took the microphone, her voice trembling slightly. "All I did was record what I saw," she said. "But what I didn't expect was to record how we grew. Every person who watched that live stream became part of this change. You didn't just view it, you acted. You shared. You demanded better. That's what makes this story ours, not just his. Her words were met with a standing ovation. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder and said quietly, "Stories move mountains, Maya. You moved an industry." As the applause faded, a low hum of conversation filled the room. Then a screen behind them flashed with live feeds from airports around the world. London, Tokyo, Lagos, São Paulo, each showing staff gathered under banners that read the Meridian Pledge, dignity in every interaction. Daniel looked at the images, his voice soft but steady. This isn't about airlines anymore. It's about humanity, about how we choose to treat one another when no one's watching. The lights dimmed slightly as he continued. In every system, every company, every heart, there's a choice between convenience and compassion, between assumption and understanding, between silence and courage. We chose courage, and courage is contagious. He stepped back from the podium and looked out across the hall. The audience was still, listening with the same kind of reverence usually reserved for church or music. "A year ago I was told to try another airline," he said quietly. "Today I invite the world to try another way." The crowd erupted again, louder this time, not out of awe but pride. People stood clapping until the sound filled every corner of the room. Later that night, when the lights of the city blurred against the rain-streaked windows of his office, Daniel stood alone watching planes take off in the distance. One after another, streaks of light pierced the clouds, each one carrying people who would never know how close their world came to breaking, and how one man's calm defiance had rebuilt it stronger than before. A knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was Maya again, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. "I figured you'd still be here," she said with a grin. He took 1 cup. "You figured right." They stood quietly for a moment, watching the planes rise into the night. "You ever think about that day?" she asked softly. "Every day," he replied. "Not because of what they did, because of what we did after." Outside, a storm gathered in the sky, but the planes kept lifting, bright and steady. Daniel turned toward her. "That's the thing about storms," he said. "They can't stop flight. They can only reveal who knows how to fly through them." Maya smiled. "And you taught the world how." He looked out the window one last time, his reflection merging with the lights beyond. "No," he said quietly. "We did." In that moment, the night seemed to stretch wider than the skyline. The same man once told he didn't belong had built something no one could take away. An empire built not on profit or prestige, but on principle. And as another plane climbed into the clouds, the faint words of the Meridian motto glowed on its side. "Respect flies here." The legacy of that single day at Gate 52A had become more than a story. It was now a way of life, echoing in every voice that chose understanding over judgment, and in every quiet act of dignity that moved the world forward, one flight at a time.